Protons are one of the most important particles of our universe. As you likely know, along with neutrons and electrons, protons make up atoms, which quite literally make up everything. They're also the most stable particle in existence, with half-lives of at least the age of the universe, if not infinite. But the picture people are commonly taught regarding them is flawed, and doesn't capture the true physics involved in such a paramount particle. You'll have probably heard that protons are made of 3 quarks, 2 up quarks and 1 down. You might even have heard of the gluon, which binds them together. But what if I told you that that's a really simplified down model of the proton? What if I told you that in reality, protons can consist of up to 13 different fundamental particles at any one time? Keep watching as I discuss the proton in much more detail than many pre-degree level physics teachers would dare go into. A good place to start is with the basics you likely already know. Specifically, that a proton is not a fundamental particle. This means it's actually composite and made up of smaller particles, in this case, quarks. Quarks themselves are fundamental as far as we know. We also all know that protons are positively charged with a charge of +1. This means that the quarks which make up the protons must also sum to a charge of +1, which they do. The simple model of 2 up quarks and 1 down quark works, since up quarks have a charge of +2/3 and the down has a charge of -1/3. You do the quick summation and you'll see that the total is back to +1. But hang on a minute, if there's quarks within a proton which are charged, we should expect from electromagnetism that the like charges repel and the opposite ones attract. So within a proton, which is less than a femtometer across, the electromagnetic force should cause the 2 up quarks to fly apart and destroy the entire system. Obviously this doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen due to the strong nuclear force, which is another fundamental force which only acts between particles with colour charge. Colour, in this context, comes in 3 flavours: red, blue and green. And baryons such as protons are overall white colour charged, as each quark is charged by 1 of each colour. The study of colour charge is known as quantum chromodynamics, and quarks aren't the only particle which contain colour. The boson, or force-mediating particle for the strong nuclear force, is known as the gluon, and it too contains colour charge. As the name implies, gluons act between quarks to glue them together to form baryons. Essentially, the repulsive electromagnetic force between quarks is countered by the strong force, in which gluons bind them together. It also prevents the attraction between oppositely charged up and downs from causing them to collapse into a singularity. So the strong force can be attractive or repulsive based on the range it acts over. But the key is it only acts between particles with colour charge, and is mediated by the gluon, which is why in the simple model there's these squiggly lines between quarks, which represent the gluons binding them together, as well as why there's 1 of each colour charge contained within the quarks to give the overall white charge. Now that we're all caught up, let's dive deeper. I mentioned before that the entire size of a proton comes out to less than a femtometer. That's an incredibly tiny distance, and one which firmly puts us within the quantum mechanical regime. On sizes as small as those, classical physics such as Newton's laws become obsolete, as particles become wave-like, instead of like little rigid balls. We require quantum mechanics to describe these systems, whereby instead of deterministically being able to say where something like an electron, or in this specific case a quark, is at any one time, as would be the case in classical physics, we can only give probabilities. This is due to the wave-like nature of particles on this scale. Quantum mechanics can only give us the probability of different events. For example, the position of an electron in a hydrogen atom is given as a probability at each range, instead of having a definite answer, as we cannot know exactly. This isn't caused by lack of insight or precision on any measurements, but is a fundamental and intrinsic part of reality and our universe. Without boring you with pages of commutator algebra with operators in quantum mechanics, this means that certain quantities cannot be known simultaneously, the most well known being position and velocity, or momentum. It is impossible to exactly know where a particle is and exactly how fast it's moving and in what direction at the same time. That is a fact, and a cornerstone of quantum mechanics. It's known as the Heisenberg Uncertainty Principle, and isn't unique to just position and momentum. In fact, the one important here is the uncertainty in measurements of both energy and time. The triangles here are Greek letter deltas and mean change in. So what this uncertainty principle means is that the uncertainty in time multiplied by the uncertainty in energy must be greater than h bar divided by 2, which for our purposes is just a constant, or a number. Physically, this allows for energy to spontaneously come into existence for a short period of time and then disappear again. If I divide the change in time on both sides of the equation, you can convince yourself that the more energy you want to spontaneously come into existence, the smaller the time it can exist for is. So if delta E is really big, delta T must be really small, and vice versa. Trust me, this is important for us and protons, as it means that within a proton, Heisenberg uncertainty allows for energy to constantly come in and out of existence. From Relativity and Einstein, we know that energy and mass are equivalent, so this energy from the uncertainty principle manifests itself as mass within a proton. Specifically, it can only do this by creating particles and their corresponding antiparticles in order to conserve other quantities such as momentum and charge. So let's put this all into context. Because protons are quantum systems, the uncertainty principle allows for the particle-antiparticle pairs to briefly form inside of them. In this case, these are always in the form of quark-antiquark pairs. And because of quantum chromodynamics, or the presence of extra colour charges, these pairs of quarks will interact within the system as follows. As a simple example, let's assume Heisenberg uncertainty causes an up and an anti-up quark to appear within a proton. For the amount of time the uncertainty principle allows for before these extra quarks disappear, the proton will actually be made of 5 quarks, 3 up, 1 down, and 1 anti-up, as you can see. There will still be gluons too, of course. In fact, the extra up and anti-up won't necessarily be the quarks which disappear once the time's up. It's possible for one of the old up quarks to annihilate with the newly created anti-up instead, leaving the new up to replace it. This leaves us once again with 3 quarks. Baryons such as protons will always have at least 3 quarks and be white colour charged overall. Obviously, we cannot distinguish individual fundamental particles which are otherwise identical, but this means that protons on average have more than just 3 quarks. From now on, I'm going to use the proper physics terminology to separate the 2 types of quarks I'm talking about. This will make the explanation easier. The 3 quarks which remain in the proton at all times, that being the 2 ups and 1 down you're familiar with, are known as valence quarks. And any quarks which arise in particle-antiparticle pairs due to Heisenberg uncertainty are known as C quarks. I used the example of an up and an anti-up being produced as the C quarks, but there's nothing stopping other kinds from doing so too. The only thing to remember is that the uncertainty principle will cause more massive or energetic quarks to be shorter lived. As the up is the lightest, it will live for the longest time, which for perspective is of the order of 10 to the minus 20 seconds, or shorter usually. But there can be other types of quarks produced too, along with more gluons which mediate the strong force between them. This is why at the start I said there can be 13 other types of particles within protons, which people often don't know about. Since you have the up, down, charm, strange, top and bottom quarks, that's 6 types, along with their corresponding antiparticles, that's 12, and then the gluons, giving us 13 different particle species. As you can imagine, the probability of finding the different C quarks within a proton decrease with increasing mass, as the heavier ones are shorter lived as previously discussed. Hence, you will almost never see the gigantic top quark within a proton, but it's not impossible. I also mentioned earlier that due to the energy-time Heisenberg uncertainty principle, C quarks live for an incredibly small amount of time before annihilating. So you might be wondering how we discovered and can be sure of the existence of C quarks. Evidence for most things in particle physics, and support for quantum field theory, comes from scattering. This is where scientists fire particles at other particles to probe their properties. This can be done in particle accelerators such as the Large Hadron Collider. To really probe far into protons, we need a lot of energy. This is known as deep inelastic scattering, and is where we effectively fire super energetic particles at protons, which smashes them to pieces, and we observe the tracks and changes in relativistic momentum to draw conclusions about what's within the proton. For the case of C quarks, the deep inelastic scattering of protons is conducted using electrons, and what we observe is several scaling violations. To put it simply, the way and probability of electron scattering off of protons were not consistent with a model of just a 3-valence quark proton. Instead, what was seen over many runs implied that there was many more quarks within a proton, which were constantly popping in and out of existence. Not only was there the theoretical prediction of C quarks by quantum chromodynamics, but we also have evidence from deep inelastic scattering to back it up. So while the total number of quarks and gluons within a proton is indeterminable at any one time, and is constantly changing, I hope you can see that it's not just simply the 3 valence quarks you may have believed when you first clicked on this video. If you've made it this far and enjoyed, please consider supporting the channel through liking and subscribing. See you next time.